Hatred is a strong word, but today I was reminded of the sentiment that love and hate are the same, it's just the intention that's different, as in like the energy and the feeling is the same. There's just, with hatred, there's a sort of intention to like turn that inwards or towards the others or towards the world, whereas with love there's a sort of, it's intense energy of like and definitely when it comes to creative or adventures or things that we're doing, activities that we're sharing, hatred can certainly come up a lot for me. And I'm reminded of like this kind of practice of many artists actually, and people who produce things and then basically bin them, like screw them up, like rework them, scribble them out, throw them away, discard them, throw the typewriter page of crease it into a crumpled ball and like throw it into the trash can, which is I think depicted in many films. And also that tendency where like musicians, like you might just like record takes and they'll just be terrible, and also all sorts of ideas, and like it's so necessary, and it goes in hand with the idea that like failure is part of the process, and we need to sort of decharge some of the tension around like hating things. And it also relates to this idea of ego versus task orientation. So if we are ego oriented and then when we reach an obstacle or a point where we feel like we hate something, it might trigger a massive like identity crisis of like, oh, if that's bad, like if I produce something bad, that means really dangerous things, that means that I'm like unlovable, that's really scary. And this might be all like internal unconscious thoughts, but there might just be like feelings of resistance and like giving up or kind of quitting while you're ahead, rather than having the resilience to be task oriented and be like, okay, well actually what I want is to do that again differently, or like learn some more skills so I can make that better. And the question of hatred, like this is some of like just a poster that I made, and I'm just using it as an example because with my branding for Heart School, which is going to change soon, basically I had this like very much love-hate relationship with it, and the things that I hate like are totally necessary, because if I didn't hate them then I wouldn't have the impulse to change them. I'd just be indifferent. I'd just be like, okay, well that's okay and that's fine, but I wouldn't, it's like there's an elastic band, right, and the elastic band gets pulled back into hate territory so it can ping back with passion, with vigour, with conviction into love territory. And otherwise we're just in this sort of, I know moderation is good and there's like the middle way, the middle ground, and that's a good place to be and a good place of indifference. But I think when it comes to like making changes in your life and making changes in the work, making changes in the things that you produce that you sort of are averse to and you dislike, so then you want to change them, and that's a healthy and good thing. If we always were just like peace, light and love, happy clappy, whatever, like spiritually bypassing and being like, I should just be level and moderate and nothing affects me, it's a nice idea, and it'd be great to, like if you want to just be a monk or if you want to just be a chiller, great. And often I think like, you know, I wish I could like get away from all the peaks and troughs and just be a chiller. But at the same time, there's this desire to do stuff, and that's just natural, like that's flow, that's the stuff that's coming through, that's the impulse, whether it's due to a trauma-based drive to like be seen, and whether it's due to, you know, channeling other intelligences and wisdoms, whether it's individual, whether it's collective, whether it's transpersonal, whether it's, I don't know, all sorts of theories about where creativity comes from. But sometimes like emotions that we could demonize as like negative, or sensations, stories that we demonize as negative, are actually really essential to us making changes that make the thing better. So for example, with this, it's like Heart School, clearing the channel, like the fact that I've got fonts here that are not fonts that I've designed, they're fonts that like came on Canva or whatever, and I like some of these fonts in and of themselves, but I don't like them together. There's a lot of stuff that's like really not great about my branding, and there's times where I've thought like, wow, I really hate it, it's horrible, like it's really ugly. But it's like, I kind of have to have that in order to revisit it and pivot it and change it and evolve it. And that's fine, like, because that emotion, that ickiness of that's not right, the kind of feedback of other people hating it as well is also not a wholly bad thing. Because like they say in relation to like ideal, you know, finding your ideal audience, the worst thing you can do is to try and please everybody, because if you try and please everybody, you're not going to appeal to anyone, you're just going to be vanilla. And I know vanilla is actually great, and vanilla is a great flavour. Don't know why we use vanilla as a derogatory thing all the time. But we know what it means. We know what it means. It's like beige, kind of, you know, middle of the road, don't offend anyone, like maximum possible boringness, lack of offence. And really, well, if you're not like, if people don't hate your work, like they're not going to love it either. Like there's got to be people that, there's going to be people that hate it, and there's going to be people that love it. There's going to be people that see your branding or your messaging or your advertising or your like posting and like, ugh, are like, whoa, you unfollow. And there's going to be people who love it and lap it up, and that's just like part of the experience of, you know, having something that is interesting, and it's not going to appeal to everybody. And I think the mistake a lot of people make is like trying to people please through their work, whether it's, and I'm in this process now of thinking like, okay, I've been brave, I did Heart School, I put it out into the world, even though there was some bits of like hatred that I had for it, which are probably love that I have for the idea, inverted, but the hatred and the shame of like, oh, just doing something that's like really heart-based and it's kind of like cheesy, when all my education has been about the intellect and about like good design and all these things, like how could I possibly do that? And just thinking that like, what if this, you know, what if me posting this or that leads to people unfollowing me, and what if people don't like what I'm about? But really it's like, it's not about me, and who wants energy around them that doesn't support them? So obviously if there's people that like, I don't know, that are engaging with your work purely to be negative and to say it's rubbish, like great for them. I hope that they have a good time. But it's similar to the idea of like, you know, I don't want to say swear anymore, but F the haters. Literally, completely, totally, you need to be able to sort of not care what anybody else thinks, and trust that if you are like discerning about what you're doing and you love it, then someone else will love it. And if you hate it, or if you hate aspects of it, you can use the task versus ego orientation tip to like change it. You can have a look at it and be like, okay, well, it needs this changing, it needs this changing, it needs this changing. You could even get feedback from other people. Sometimes getting too much feedback from other people can be really confusing, because they'll all say different things. This was always the case when I was at art school and when I was teaching. I would have people like, I personally would like speak to different tutors, and they would all say totally different things about the same piece of work or the same idea, and it leaves you with this sort of like analysis paralysis of competing opinions. And it's a little bit like having like multiple or authority figures or parents that have different beliefs, and like that's really confusing to you, and it undermines your own inner authority and your own inner decision making about what you need to do, which is really important to have that sort of connection to that intuition as somebody who is creating things. Too much input, too much feedback can actually undermine that, but it is sometimes good to have feedback. And it's also good to be able to be like, yeah, thanks for your feedback, that's cool, I'm going to take that on board, but I'm also going to just ignore that because I disagree with it. And I also, like, I have this thing, I think this is right, I think this is the right decision, and if that means some people don't like me or don't like what I do or don't like my work or aren't there for it, then so be it. And just having the clarity, conviction, self-worth around your decision making and your intuition to be able to just like work that, you know. And it's not about being arrogant or callous, it's just about being having integrity, I think, and having integrity and a sense of like honour with your own actions. How long are we on? Okay, right, that's fine. So I was just going to talk very briefly now about rejection and how I have like an inbox full of rejection emails. An inbox, not an inbox full, but I have a folder in my emails which is full of rejection. I'm not going to talk about that now.